Good evening, everyone. Happy Saturday, coming at you live here from Texas. So I wanted to kind of go ahead and start this video off of one of my favorite plants families. It's called the elephant ear is what people usually call them by. I actually started getting these plants from my mother back when I was in college, and it was just a really easy way for me to start getting into plants because this was one of those versatile plants that can do well kind of like in drier situations, but also in like a kind of overrun boggy water situations, kind of depending on the species, of course. But the elephant ear family kind of actually encompasses a number of genus and species, but the couple that I have here are actually Colocasias over here, and then as well as Alocasias over here, which are pretty hard to distinguish, and I'm actually not even sure if I'm distinguishing them right. I'm just kind of going off of some of the internet research that I've done. But either way, they're both got pretty, they both have pretty similar growing habits and such. And I've had them for at least a few years now, including overwintering them. So that's kind of helped me get this kind of experience that I feel comfortable talking about, and kind of starting a little channel where we can kind of just talk about our experiences, whether it be by state or growing zones, or if you're growing it indoor or outdoor. I'm actually growing it on a patio myself, so I feel like that's an interesting medium because I follow a lot of YouTube channels that are just like in-ground, outdoor-only plant YouTube channels like Garden Answer and stuff like that, but there are also quite a few many that grow indoor house plants. You know, like Plantarina has her wonderful garage, and I follow a bunch of smaller YouTubers like Keisha Dinkra as well, and you know, that also do indoor plants, but I haven't really found too many that kind of grow for the outdoor patio, kind of limited urban space kind of plants, as well as some kind of indoor friendly plants, or just, you know, some kind of versatile ones that can kind of fit both categories. And I feel like this is one of the plants that kind of fits into those categories. Like I said, I've overwintered these a few winters at least now actually, and across a couple of different home environments, from like my studio apartment in college to a nice big house here in Central Texas, to also a little townhome. So I don't know, I feel like even if I don't know all the scientific names and distinguish how to distinguish between Alocasia and Colocasia super correctly and scientifically, I feel like at least for like just chatting purposes and growing purposes, I could share some knowledge, or at least some stories or something, to open up some kind of conversation. So like I was saying earlier, I'm pretty sure that this one over here is the Colocasia, which you can tell the difference between Alocasia, which is over here. You can see by this leaf, and really hopefully kind of all the other leaves, including this one, like this one over here, they're all like pointing skyward. They're all like reaching for the sky. Even like, I don't know, I guess you could say like if this is the top of the plant, you could say the top of the plant is almost completely like vertical, which it wouldn't really make it the top, but it's at just such a slant that it's practically vertical, if that makes sense. Whereas the Colocasia, if this was to be picked up, like if you can kind of pick it up on camera, and do you see how the leaf kind of, it's, instead of pointing upward like the Alocasia is over here, it's actually kind of hanging, like it's a little bit limp, which I think is what the the distinguishing factor is that Colocasias are kind of like weak-stemmed, and it kind of like hangs. I actually have another example that kind of shows that hanging in just a second that I'll bring out. But I did want to note, because it almost looks like, if you were to look at this leaf and kind of compare it to this one on camera, at least, it looks like it's growing upward, kind of like an Alocasia, but it's actually a new growth, and it's literally barely unfurling. I mean, it's barely finishing unfurling. It's actually got a little bit of a curl here in the back that you can't really see here on camera. But that's why it's hanging kind of upward, because as you can see from this little guy that I have here, if you're able to see it on camera, the growth kind of starts from the middle, and it just kind of, even just the new growth starts kind of pointing upward as it unfurls. And then if it's a Colocasia, as it like continues to unfurl, it'll eventually just kind of go a little bit more limp. So if you bear with me for just 1 second and I wedge this into frame, you'll kind of be able to see more of the hanging aspect of the Colocasia. Do you see what I mean? Like how it's facing downward, especially there's one right here that's like practically facing my face, if that makes sense. So I actually have an interesting story about this one that is rather clearly, whichever is the one that hangs, which I'm pretty sure is the Colocasia, the one that has like the more kind of weak stem. So that one I actually found, I live in a, pretty urban community, and I have my grocery store across the street, as well as like a YMCA and just like a little creek and stuff. And so I believe it was this past fall, I was walking to the store, and all of a sudden I just noticed there was like a whole, like all along the creek, it was just covered in elephant ears. And I was kind of like, I don't know why at that point I was like rather obsessed. I think it was just like the right growing season, or just the right environment for all my elephant ears, that they were all growing like profusely, like putting out new growth. So I was just like noticing new growth on all of my elephant ears like pretty much every day. While I was walking, I had noticed those on the creek, and then my neighbor, who also knows that I garden a lot and walks to the store sometimes too, had also noticed those on the creek. And so one day we were just talking about plants or whatever, and we had just both come to the realization that we both want to go and like kind of like harvest, I guess, these elephant ears out of the creek. And so we did, and I almost kind of felt crazy because I felt like I was like looting or something, like I don't know. And so we went and we dug up a little handful of some of these elephant ears. And it was funny because we had to go like off the road and just into the little creek that's right there. And people are walking by and driving by and kind of looking, and then one of them's like, "Are you digging that up and taking it home? Like, that's a good idea. I think I might do the same." And I was like, "Go for it." Like, it was really easy. Like, the creek, it's kind of mucky, and so the roots on these kinds of plants tend to start off quite shallow. I mean, they can go really deep, but and also here in Central Texas, in my growing zone, I think a lot of elephant ears are actually kind of a nuisance. Like, I guess that's probably why they were so widespread on that creek, is because just like it had just recently kind of flooded too. So I don't know if some like corm or little bulb, I think they're corms or whatever they're called on elephant ears. But anyways, some little baby elephant ears had made its way to the little creek and just kind of started spreading. So I got my hands on a few of them, and or just a handful, because I knew a couple probably weren't gonna make it, so I wound up with a few. And I don't know, it's growing much differently than my other ones, like noticeably different. And I'm not gonna be able to pick it up on camera, but it's actually a different green as well. So from the moment I first got it, it was easy for me to distinguish it from my other elephant ears, even if I put it in the mix. It also is the one that like hangs the most. Like it has like the weakest stems of all of my elephant ears, which I find unique, I suppose. But it's growing crazy right now. If I'm able to kind of sneak it back on camera, I'm almost embarrassed about it, but it's natural, I suppose, and it's only been happening kind of recently, honestly, that it's shoving out these little babies out of this, out of the pot. And barely are some of the roots going through the bottom, and so I could probably do with repotting it, but I've actually, in my experience, I've actually had elephant ears thrive the most when I kind of accidentally wound up neglecting them, or just letting them get pot bound, and even just not watering them sometimes. Like one time I got a new grill, last summer I got a new grill for like Father's Day. I guess a dad present for me for being a doggy dad or something. And so I got the grill, I put it like oblique to the corner, so there was space behind it because honestly, between you and I had so many elephant ears. So I was just like, okay, this is one of my biggest ones, but it kind of takes up a lot of room. So I'm just gonna like hide it in this corner behind the grill and kind of out of sight, out of mind. Like it doesn't look like it's cluttering the patio. And I didn't want to get rid of it because it was like my biggest pot of it, and it's like my mother plant. And I low-key totally forgot about it until it was like the end of summer, beginning of fall, and I was doing, you know, another seasonal cleaning, and I moved the grill to like sweep, and I'm like, oh my, there was a whole pot there, and it was just like, I mean, it was thriving though. There were so many little babies in there. It wasn't like jumping out of the pot like this one, maybe because it just doesn't send like shooters or spreaders, or whatever they call them, little shoots. And so, but I mean, it had babies like all the way to the sides, you know what I mean? Like practically like busting out of the pot, horizontally, I guess. So yeah, that was really crazy for me. And then even from there, I like broke it apart, and I had like 10 babies, and I like offered so many to people at work, who funnily enough everybody had said no when I offered plants, and I was so excited. I had repotted them. There was going to be like a meeting at work, you know, like just a company-wide meeting. So I had let everybody know, hey, if anybody wants some plants, like let me know. I'll just go ahead and bring them. I already got them potted up and ready. And then the time came, and I mean, I had even asked a couple times, and nobody had taken me up on the offer. So what I had done is I was like, you know what, I have all these beautiful plants, many of them flowering still, and so I had gotten a couple pots at work and made like a couple matching flower arrangements, like floral container arrangements, and I went ahead and put those at work, like at the entrance, but then beside them I had put some of the babies that, you know, I was hoping to get to a good home, because I don't like to just throw plants away. It makes me so sad. And so I brought them all into work, and people were like, wow, because I guess they were kind of some of my more impressive specimens from like that mother plant that I was telling y'all about. So I had taken some of my few nice ones that had already started growing into their pots, and I transplanted, you know, from before when everybody had said no before. So I had finally taken them all, and I just had taken them to work, and I'm like, hey, I even just said, I'm just gonna take this to work and improve the ambiance, give us some atmosphere and all that kind of stuff, bring some greenery into here. And then within the first week, everyone was mentioning how much nicer the office looks, and then, hey, can I take some home? Or I showed a picture to my wife, she wants one, and I'm just like, I mean, I was happy, you know, I was grateful that the plants were going to a nice home, but at the same time, it was like, where were you like a few months ago when I had more plants to give away too? So I'm at least glad that they did, you know, find a new home. And these can be tricky because, like, even as babies, you kind of, you know, this one has a few leaves, which, I mean, it's not uncommon, but some people kind of struggle with getting more than like 1 or 2 leaves, or they'll, you know, have 1 or 2 leaves, and then a new one will come, and then one of the old ones will die off. It's really just a matter of course, getting the sunlight and the water just correct and in good balance. And I'm sorry, y'all, I didn't want to make a mention, but it's a humid day in Texas, and we're having quite the hair day. But anyways, so yeah, a lot of people kind of have a little bit of a challenge kind of finding the correct conditions to give this plant, and sometimes they can be a little bit finicky in getting transplanted, kind of like I was saying when I had picked those up from the muck, and a lot of them actually had to be cut back because it was the shock, of course. And then but yeah, so just wanted to talk to you guys about this plant because it can be quite resilient. It could kind of thrive on neglect, but you could also kind of baby it a little bit. You know, my mom actually has these in very South Texas, kind of towards, I think, like a zone 10, maybe a 9, but I think it's closer to a 10. And I also wanted to mention that these generally grow in zones 8 through 11. But so my mom's in South Texas, where I would maybe think that something that looks kind of lush and like almost like tropical and kind of boggy, creek-ish. Would not do well in somewhere so desert as my mother's place, but one, she kind of loves to water her garden, so they get a lot of water and just, you know, precipitation because of my mother, and it's well-draining soil, so it doesn't just like bog down either, which some of them like, some of them don't like. But you should see how big my mother's Alocasia, which is where this one came from. Hers leaves are just huge. Like, it's my favorite thing when she sends me pictures of them, because my mom's already kind of a petite woman anyway, so her next to these big elephant ears, which they also go by taro plants as well. I think a little bit more commonly in like Asia and such, where they're from. So I don't know, just wanted to give you all a little rundown. This is actually my first video that I'm putting up, but you know, I've been encouraged by some of the YouTubers. I felt encouraged, not personally encouraged, like I wasn't reached out to or anything, but watching some of my kind of smaller YouTubers that I subscribe to, and even some of the bigger ones too, you know, just say, you know, just grab a camera, turn it on, talk about whatever you want to talk about. I at least tried to give y'all somewhat of a backdrop. I'm not usually that much into like aesthetics and I don't know, just things like that to kind of like spruce up a video and things like that, but I wanted to give y'all, you know, at least some effort. This is something I would love to go ahead and go forward and give some effort and energy in, because I think it'd be just nice to have a little community to talk about plants. I wouldn't mind in the future, even though it's not related, so but I wouldn't mind, you know, maybe playing a couple of video games like Animal Crossing and stuff, showing all my islands and how I have my little virtual garden, I suppose, and some of my nice villagers that also appreciate my garden, I think. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Feel free to like, comment, and let me know how you guys like the elephant ear, where you guys grow it, what kind of conditions, because I'd be very curious to know. Even how you propagate it. I usually propagate just putting it straight in dirt, though I have tried a couple water propagations and was successful with the Alocascia, which this one actually came from a water propagation from when I got it from my mother. I just stuck it right in water because the roots were non-existent. My mom just chopped it right off the plant. I don't know if these Alocasias or this specific one has aerial roots, but I don't know if really any Alocasia or Colocasia does, but some of the plants that people call elephant ears do have aerial roots, like Syngoniums and such. But I mean, some people call them arrowheads. I just prefer, arrowheads, and some people call them elephant ears. I just prefer to call them Syngoniums. But that's another video, because those are one of my favorite plants as well. But yeah, I just wanted to also touch on propagation before I left, because I do water propagate these sometimes, and I have also done it in dirt, you know, just getting the baby straight and just transplanting it into little tiny things like this, which that one I'm sure is due for a transplant. But again, thank you everyone. Have a good evening. Feel free to let me know how you like this video or any suggestions, and goodbye.